On September 1st, 1986, 4 American combat veterans went to the steps of the nation's capital to begin fasting, a demonstration of their opposition to their government's policy toward Nicaragua. In an open letter to the American people, they said, "We are so convinced of the immorality and illegality of this new Vietnam, this undeclared war, that we now offer our lives in a statement of ultimate protest. Today, we begin a water-only fast that will end only when you, the American people, speak out loudly and clearly that you will not tolerate leaders who are willing to sacrifice the lives of the Nicaraguan people for questionable interests." 47 days later, as support mounted, the fast ended, but the action continued in a new form. It was only the beginning. Dear Mr. President, members of the Senate and House, the first Veterans Peace Action Team has completed its mission in Nicaragua. We spent nearly 6 weeks in the war zones where we have seen the destruction of homes, schools, and clinics. We have talked to the victims minutes after bloody ambushes. We have concluded that this is not a war between 2 armies over territory. While you would have the American people believe the killing and maiming of innocent civilians is an unintended consequence of the conflict, this policy of terror that you euphemistically refer to as low-intensity warfare is deliberately and intentionally directed at the civilian population. It is a conception of the United States government carried out by this government's hired proxies and paid for with the tax dollars of U.S. citizens. From a letter dated August 21st, 1987, to Captain Lonnie Cagle, Commander, Concord Naval Weapons Station, from Brian Wilson. Dear Commander Cagle, CNWS is the largest munitions depot on the West Coast. An April 1985 U.S. Department of Defense contract with the government of El Salvador has provided hard evidence of substantial shipments of munitions from CNWS to Central America. I have been involved with many others in the Nuremberg actions, and we have been present on a daily basis at CNWS since June 10, 1987. We plan a sustained presence that will include persons placing their bodies on the tracks and roadway, asking you and those moving the munitions to stop their movement. In so doing, we will be upholding the law under the Nuremberg principles agreed to by the United States and Article 6 of our Constitution, which holds our treaties to be supreme law. Under Nuremberg, every citizen, including military personnel, is duty-bound to uphold the law, even when ordered otherwise by superiors. Commencing September 1st, 1987, I plan to fast on water only on the tracks for a period of 40 consecutive days. I want you to know in advance of this plan. If not incarcerated, deceased, or otherwise disabled, I am committed, as the Spirit moves me, to be physically on the tracks for part of each of the 40 days. This will be made clear to the public and the media. Because of the seriousness of these matters, I ask that we have a personal meeting to discuss them. This action is not intended to harass you or any military or civilian personnel. As part of our philosophy of nonviolence, we are committed to treat every person with human respect. We must, however, do everything reasonable in our power to make known the crimes of our country and stop them from continuing. I hope you will respond so that we can set up a mutually convenient time to meet. Sincerely, S. Brian Wilson. The authorities were notified of the resistance action to take place on the tracks at CNWS. They had the choice of suspending movement of munitions, removing the protesters, or running them over. The response came shortly before noon on the first day of the fast, September 1st, 1987, as Brian Wilson knelt on the tracks. The munitions train approached the fasters at approximately 20 miles per hour. It did not stop. 10 hours later, Brian Wilson came out of surgery with both legs amputated below the knees, recovering from severe head injuries. 2 days after that, he began to plan the next step in his continuing commitment to stop the trains and the aggression in Central America. His courage and determination inspired and rallied thousands. In reflecting on the importance of the action at the Concord Naval Weapons Station, Brian Wilson stated, "One truth seems clear. If the munitions trains move past our blockade, other human beings will be killed and maimed. We are not worth more. The people of Nicaragua are not worth less. The story of the 2nd Veterans Peace Action Team is about their experience among the Nicaraguan people. This is it, as they told it to me. This is El Cedro, Jinotega Province, northern Nicaragua. A mountain village of about 150 people situated along the one lonely primitive road that runs through this region. You can take it all in from one of the surrounding hillsides. Simple houses of rough-cut lumber and corrugated zinc without plumbing or electricity. Travel is mostly on foot, some by horse. The beginnings of what will hopefully become a flourishing coffee crop. A few cows and pigs. Some chickens. Children with distended bellies and the telltale orange discoloration in their hair. Indicators of intestinal parasites and malnutrition, respectively. Life here is harsh, demanding at best. But the ruined church on the hill, the shattered remains of what was once the village store, and fresh graves on the hillside speak of extraordinary demands. El Cedro is about 25 miles from the border with Honduras in the heart of the war zone. That is why we, the 2nd Veterans Peace Action Team, have come. We left California, a team of 8, from various parts of the country, from diverse backgrounds. In Managua, we interviewed and accepted a 9th member, and we connected with Rick Schuss, our long-term representative in Nicaragua. Rick had been on the 1st team and elected to remain in the country to help organize the 2nd team's project in El Cedro through our sponsoring organization, UNAG, a non-governmental union of small farmers and ranchers. For 3 days, we met with and were welcomed by members of several agencies and organizations. We visited the one physical rehabilitation hospital in the country. We delivered sheets and pillowcases, a gift from the people of Santa Cruz, California, and we spoke with some of the patients. Each had lost one or more limbs, mostly to the anti-tank mines that the Contra plant both on the roads and in the fields among the crops. Most of the casualties are civilian. During the weeks we spent in the war zone, we saw no tanks. This young man lost his legs to a mine provided by the U.S. government. He knows that. Yet, as we were leaving, he thanked us for coming, shook our hands, and wished us luck. His sense of purpose, his self-respect, and his place within both his family and society seems intact. His new prosthetic legs are on the bed behind him. We arrived in Matagalpa during the funeral of a local agrarian leader. He was one of over 1,500 UNAG members who have been ambushed or assassinated over the last 6 years. He was buried near the grave of Ben Linder, the American engineer ambushed in late April. Both men had died in the mountains to the north, the area to which we were headed. The team was delayed in Matagalpa for a few days because of battles in progress, either on or very near the road, but eventually we got the green light and headed north. As we climbed into the mountains, the vistas became wild and beautiful. But each time we traversed a stream or even a large puddle in the road, the tension would mount. These are the places where the Contra most frequently place the anti-tank mines. The effect of this type of mine on a 2.5-ton truck is horrifying. When the truck is full of people, the carnage almost defies description. The road took us right through Abyssinia, scene of one of the battles that took place a couple of days before. In Matagalpa, we had read about the attack as it had been reported to the media by the Contra leadership in Miami. They reported a successful attack against a government army post, resulting in the deaths of 95 government soldiers. We stopped to have a look. There was no army post, and there had been no soldiers present. The local militia, about 36 farmers, held the line against 300 to 400 Contra until they ran out of ammunition. The food storage warehouse, called a bodega, was gutted along with the health post. The community tractor was destroyed. 21 homes were destroyed, this one with the residents still inside. The final toll, 13 killed, 10 wounded, and 8 kidnapped. We were later informed that the man who showed us the effects of the attack that day was ambushed in early August along with his wife. He had been the UNAG representative in Abyssinia. Why are the health posts, schools, tractors, and bodegas the primary targets, we asked? Why have hundreds of teachers, health workers, and agrarian leaders been ambushed, assassinated? Each person we asked explained in his or her own way that it has to do with Sandinismo. About 50 years ago, Augusto Sandino took on the United Fruit Company and the U.S. Marines in the pursuit of 4 objectives: that there be no U.S.-imposed dictators, that the land be controlled by those who work it, that each person receive adequate health care, and that everyone have the opportunity to be educated. This is Sandinismo. These are the fundamental precepts of the Sandinista Party. So when the Contra destroy a clinic or a coffee crop, when they ambush a teacher or an engineer, they attack property or a person, but what they mean to destroy is the dream of the Nicaraguan people. This is the aim of what the Reagan administration calls low-intensity warfare. It isn't working. The people here have been without an American-imposed dictator for 8 years. They have endured years of U.S.-inspired aggression, a conflict that has consumed the lives of nearly 40,000 Nicaraguans. They have suffered and sacrificed in order to remain free from domination by any foreign power, including both the Soviets and the United States. In short, they have paid far too dearly for their freedom to surrender it to anyone. When we arrived in El Cedro, it was wet, gray, and tense. 2.5 months before, in the last Contra attack, they had lost an 18-month-old, a 4-year-old, and 4 militia. 4 out of a total of 37 poorly armed defenders. The people were hurting.
Never before have my people had hope. Never before had a choice. Now that we're learning to speak from our hearts, why would you silence our voice? I cannot believe that you're cruel and uncaring, though this terrible war drags on. So I'll stand my watch through the terror of midnight and pray we survive till the dawn, to the dawn.
So was the clinic we had come to rebuild. This was our project. Local woodcutters would provide the wood. We would provide the tools and labor. The morning after we arrived, without ceremony, we went to work. Many of the locals helped us get the materials up the hill. All the wood and water for mixing concrete and mortar. Some literally ran up the hill and then ran back down for more. They were inspired, and we were motivated. 4 of us were Vietnam vets. We had been in villages similar to this one before, but never at the invitation of the residents. All of us had been trained to participate in destruction, to destroy for peace. Now we were building. And despite the poor diet, bad water, Scorpion bites, dysentery, and the war, which was sometimes no more than 1.5 kilometers from where we stood, each one of us was proud of what we were doing and thankful for the opportunity to be doing it. The work progressed. We worked on another project as well. Using video and still cameras, audio recordings, and written records, we documented the effect of the war on the lives of the people of El Cedro. Victor told us of being forcefully recruited by the Contra at the age of 14. He spent the next 3.5 years with them. We asked Victor if he'd been trained in Honduras, and he replied that he wasn't sure where he'd been during the first 2.5 years. Prior to his abduction, he had never been very far from his home, and though he occasionally saw a signpost or the name of a place written, it meant nothing to him because he had never learned to read or write. Eventually, Victor was able to escape the Contra and return home. Today, he can read and write. Sorieda Blandon described the brutality and deprivation the campesinos suffered during the Somoza years. Here, she shows us how, during the last attack in March, she covered her children's mouths to stifle their cries as they hid from the Contra in the coffee fields. Each boy suffered a ruptured eardrum caused by the concussion from exploding mortar rounds. Meletina Castillo expressed disappointment that no priest will come to conduct Mass, baptize infants, or bury the dead. The priests won't come because there is no sanctuary. Their church was destroyed in the 1985 attack, and to date they haven't had the resources to rebuild it. She commented ruefully, "They, the Contra, destroy the churches, then call us communists."
Claro, porque si ya no hubieran eso, pues ya tenemos esperanza de que ya no haya nada, pues, porque así cuando pasan eso uno se siente atemorizado.
And she says, yes, we have faith and hope. Where would we be without it?
As the days went by, our relationships with the people began to deepen. As the clinic was rebuilt, it seemed the hopes and spirit of these people were in some way restored a bit. The children began to play more. They sang more frequently. The adults talked more. Smiles came easier. There was time for a haircut or a game of baseball. Trips to the river to bathe or wash clothes became almost recreational in tone. The river was beautiful and serene. A company of government soldiers arrived and camped above the village for a couple of nights. The atmosphere relaxed even more, for now the local militia would have a couple of nights to be with their families instead of guarding the perimeter of the village. These troops represent the military might of a country with a total population of 3 million people, half of them under 17 years of age. When they left for the front, they went on foot. They weren't going very far. Sometimes when they need trucks, they have to rent them due to equipment shortages. The fiesta that formalized the completion of the project was a high point for everyone. Farmers and ranchers from outlying areas brought their families, and of course everyone from the village was there. The people of El Cedro put up 2 signs, one in English, one in Spanish. They say, "What the Reagan administration destroys, the people of the United States rebuild." Speeches were made, songs were sung, and we presented some sports equipment, a gift from the people of Santa Cruz. It was an instant success. The people thanked us for our help and support. We thanked them for the opportunity to be there, to work beside them. A couple of days later, we were back in Matagalpa attending a celebration commemorating the birthday of Carlos Fonseca, a Nicaraguan patriot and hero. It was very colorful. Thousands of people attended, but the celebration that meant the most to us was the one we carried in our hearts. For the people of El Cedro, we continue to carry it today. We celebrate the courage and determination with which they work and defend a small piece of the earth that means so much to them, for which they have paid so high a price. We celebrate the genuine humility with which they persevere in the face of devastating conditions. If the school is destroyed, they meet somewhere else, but the classes continue for both children and adults. If the coffee crop is burned, they return to the fields and begin again and again. They are among the poorest and most vulnerable people in our hemisphere. They are withstanding a multifaceted policy of aggression from the most powerful nation in the world. What is being done to them is being done in our name. The people of El Cedro cannot be here to speak to you, but they asked us to tell you they want to live in peace, to raise their families and their crops, to be a good neighbor and to have friendly relations with us, to eliminate the illiteracy and malnutrition in their country altogether. We promised that when we returned to the U.S., we would speak to you for them. We feel we owe it to ourselves, to you, and to the people of El Cedro to keep that promise. We made another promise, that we would be back. The Veterans Peace Action Teams will be sending a new team every 6 to 8 weeks to continue the reconstruction and restoration of El Cedro. We invite you to join one of our teams. You don't have to be a veteran in order to be accepted, but a commitment to nonviolence is essential. Invite one of our returning team members to speak to your community, your church group, or business organization. Help us get the word out. Another option is to participate in a domestic action here in the U.S. And finally, we need your financial support to provide the tools and materials for reconstruction projects, to maintain our Speakers Bureau and outreach program, and to provide full or partial sponsorships for qualified applicants who lack sufficient funds. There are many ways to help. We hope we have inspired you to select one and act upon it. With your support, we can achieve the high level of effectiveness we are striving for. So, which team are you going to be on? The 4th team, the 5th team, or the support team? Please call or write us today. We are waiting to hear from you. So are the people of El Cedro.
Oh, Nicaragua, yearning for freedom, proud little child of the earth. All of your children who love you so well are washed in the tears of your birth. We'll stand for your place in this world. We won't let you pass from the present stillborn. And one day I pray that we'll all stand together and sing out in thanks to the dawn, to the dawn.